And welcome back. Today we are talking about the increase in frequency that sets have been coming out and how, as a Magic player, you can deal with it. But before we get to that, we have an Am I the Archenemy? I'm Levi.
I'm Jacoby.
And I'm Joe.
And this is the Thought Vessel. Welcome to the show. As we were putting this episode together, we realized we haven't done an Am I the Archenemy in a little while, so we thought it was appropriate to kick us off with a nice scenario to go over. Joe, whenever you're ready.
Am I the Archenemy MTG? So today I got called out for playing a high-end Bracket 4 deck when I was up against precons and a deck someone had thrown together, which was actually quite devastating. I played my upgraded Taval the Balanced Scale deck. After my commander had been removed twice, I managed to get both Taval the Balanced Scale and Colossal Grave Reaver, essentially milling cards and getting them to the battlefield on attack. The only cards that I had played that were not in the precon were Deathrite Shaman and Victimize. Thanks to milling, I did get Blood Artist and Mirkwood Bats out a turn later thanks to the mill effects. I said I didn't think it was a power 4 because I don't have any game changers like Diabolic Tutor in the deck, but things happened because I kept Victimized in my opening hand. Am I the archenemy for playing this deck, even though it was a high power 4, although the sites all state it's a 3? We then went through the cards I played, and I explained that the 80% of the cards played were pre-con based. I just had a good start with Victimize and Diabolic Tutor in my opening hand. Wait, hold on. I thought this guy said that he didn't have Diabolic Tutor.
Yeah, contradicted themselves.
I know that Artists and Bats have combos around them, and if I had Gravecrawler in hand, then it would have been an easy win against another pre-con card. I'm not too bitter about this, as I have played the same deck and it hadn't kicked off that quickly in a very long time. What are your thoughts? Yes, we did completely miss the Rule 0 as I turned up a bit late and sat down, grabbed a deck, and played. Every player has played against my Taval deck before and said it was okay. But, my guy, you immediately contradicted yourself. What are you talking about?
You went and said, oh, I don't have game changers, like Diabolic Tutor. And then you immediately turned around and said, yeah, I had Diabolic Tutor in my opening hand.
Wait,
to clarify, Diabolic Tutor's the 4-mana one?
Yeah, I literally just thought about that. He probably meant Demonic Tutor on the game changers instead of the Diabolic Tutor.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Diabolic Tutor, if you're paying 4 mana to get a card to your hand, I'm good with that.
Don't get me wrong, he probably had meant that, but it's interchangeable.
It's one of those difficult things where relying on the sites is one of the big things that we've tried to, at least within my games, I try to steer away from, because it's going back to that thing about intent. What was your intent in building this? Did you want it to be a 3? And if so, do you think that this necessarily plays as a 3? Because even at the beginning, you said it's playing a high-end Bracket 4 deck. Even if you don't think it was a Bracket 4, it certainly plays that way.
There's this issue I have with going, oh, it says it's a Bracket 3. And Levi in particular, we've on this podcast discussed, you could make the CDH Sisay a Bracket 1, and it still operates almost the same. We've had moments we talk on the podcast where the system's not perfect.
It's not. No matter what your system and what cards they put in, there are ways that you can fudge the system, have a combo or something that the system is just not going to pick up automatically. We try to get as many combos out there into websites like Commander Spellbook as we possibly can, but there's stuff being invented and discovered every day. We can't do everything. So I think it's a matter of knowing what you're getting yourself into. Now, that particular deck, so that particular Taval the Balanced Scale, I think that's one of those precons that you could justify putting at a 3 out the gate. It is a very, very strong precon. I've seen it played on streams, and it's done well in Bracket 3s. It holds its own. There are some games that you will play in which you keep an opening hand with some ramp and some card draw, but there's not any removal, but you're like, oh, I'll probably get into some removal, and then the rest of the table does the same thing, and somebody pops off super early, and no one has any way to deal with it, and it's game over. These things do happen. If it comes out to an explosive start, with those types of interactions and cards, a Swords to Plowshares goes a long way and shuts it down, or a simple Bajuka Bog to get rid of a graveyard. There are ways to answer these questions. This wasn't a situation in which a question was presented to you that you had no solution possible to you to resolve.
This guy could have benefited from a proofreader, because there's just contradictory statement after contradictory statement after contradictory statement. While we did find out that the Diabolic Tutor and Demonic Tutor, that was switched up earlier on, they also did the only cards that they played that were not in the precon were Deathrite, Shaman, and Victimize. But then a few lines later, and I explained that the 80% of the cards were played were precon based. I don't exactly know what you mean if that's the case. If those are the only two cards, that is, you would have to have more changed if that was the percentage.
If he got off to like a super duper fast start and he only played 10 cards, technically he's right.
Also, there is the idea maybe that he's counting cards he physically played and not things that got milled into the graveyard that are still a factor in the game, which is not a correct assessment either. I milled all the brand new pretty cards. They didn't get to be a factor, but they're still in the deck. Doesn't make them irrelevant.
It is rough.
One thing I will say with this is they're commanding a higher price for precons than they originally did. In my opinion, better qualified people, being that we have a lot more content and statistics around what makes a successful commander deck. Not necessarily CDH, but just as far as like, it's going to get up off the ground and do what it's supposed to, regardless of what bracket you're going into. Wizards of the Coast is able to use that information and put together these decks. Usually they're around like a niche theme for that particular set, just to kind of, if you really like that keyword or mechanic. These precons are a heck of a lot better than they used to be. Picking up precon today, and if you have a more experienced pilot, odds are if you're listening to this show, you're probably in this category because you're seeking out this kind of content, and you play it in like a bracket 3 with some people that are less experienced, you're probably going to do okay. An upgraded precon, a precon like kind of around that side, I think the ceiling of bracket 2 is a lot higher than people give it credit for, is what I would say.
Specifically, it's this guy, I don't think fully understood what he was trying to do with the deck. I have always brought it up that my Garrett deck reads as a 3 on Moxfield. It is not a 3. I have built that to be combo-tastic. While it does not run a lot of tutors, that's because I put more consistency into the deck. That, above all, will cause that deck to go so much higher. That's why I always say that synergy is so wild.
Like mentioned earlier, Levi has gotten together and literally made a bracket 1 CDH deck. Like, it's not impossible.
There's going to be bad actors. I don't think that's the situation. I'm not sure he's the arch enemy as much as when you have a kind of bracket 3 decks, there are going to be games in which everything goes right, the stars align, and the deck explodes. These things happen, turn 1 Soul Ring into Arcane Signet kind of a stuff where unless the table was responsible with their hands and kept some removal to play a little defense, things can get away pretty quickly. That's fine. But I think that's something that you need to be aware of with these new precons is there are scenarios in which you can have explosive stuff. We've talked in the past about the Tidus Final Fantasy Commander deck that technically go and do an infinite combat on turn 2. Is that a bracket 4 deck? Not even close. But it has that kind of capability to win on a borderline CEDH pace. There 100%. Are some days in which Magical Christmas Lander happens, and that's fine. Just shuffle up, get a new game in, keep at that. Let's dive into it. At MagicCon Atlanta, we got the run of the new sets that are occurring. We had a surprising revelation that there is going to be 7 standard legal sets that are released in 2026, 4 of which are going to be Universes Beyond. I'm going to try to name off all 7 off of the top of my head. I'm not looking at anything, not cheating. We're going to start out with Lorwyn Eclipsed, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Strixhaven. We're going back to Strixhaven. Very excited for that one, as a friend of the show, Cass is as well.
Same here.
We might get a second version of your book. We'll see. TBD. The Hobbit. Marvel Superheroes is in there as well.
Marvel Superheroes, then The Hobbit.
There's that one Magic Reality Fractured set that no one has any information on.
And then they cap the year with Star Trek.
And Star Trek. So Star Trek is going to be, I think, the most interesting of those because we got a little taste of space and magic with Edge of Eternities, where I thought we were going to get either some Star Trek cards in that set as kind of like a bonus sheet or possibly a ride-along Secret Lair, but we're getting a full-blown set of it, which to me seems like a lot, but I like Star Trek, but I haven't seen as many episodes. I haven't watched every single one, or like some other fandoms might be. We'll have to see, but the main thing is, we're averaging more than one set per every couple of months. We used to have with MagicCon, you'd have like 3 per year, and they were always connected to the next set coming out. Now you have to cross your fingers and hope they align correctly. The MagicCon Atlanta was supposed to be based on Edge of Eternities. It really just felt like a Spider-Man con. Everything around it was like Spider-Man themed for the most part. I didn't see very much Edge of Eternities at all with that set. And that's rough.
100%. It was the set that had just recently come out. We even saw the different sections that were set up for Spider-Man for the starting decks too. They had an entire stand where if you solved a crossword puzzle in a newspaper that they gave you, they handed you a starter deck. Downside to that, they did not take the newspaper from you. Do with that information as you will.
Outside of that, one thing that all this is occurring is we have all these sets that are coming out, plus their supplemental items and stuff. It kind of begins to beg the question, with all of this information and financial restrictions, people only have a certain amount of extra income that they have per year. Are we becoming worse deck builders because of the frequency of the set releases?
I think no. It's kind of the idea of not having the information versus the information being ever present in your forefront being a skill factor. Not knowing something exists is not the same as saying you ignored it. If you can't keep up with all of the new stuff as it continues to go on, and then you just end up like skipping a set. For example, our most recent set, the Eternities, is one of the ones I completely skipped. If you showed me an Eternities card, I probably would not know it's an Eternities card without looking at the set symbol. I wouldn't know anything about it. I don't think that makes me a worse deck builder. It makes me an uninformed builder.
I could see that.
Being uninformed is not the same as being bad.
Being bad is being bad.
This is an example that I will provide in which I think that collectively Magic players are becoming worse deck builders because of this release schedule. I'll provide a slight example. I was working on a deck, let's just say that I was working on one of the Doctors from a couple of years ago or something like that. Just trying to get a deck put together. And then Spider-Man drops. And now I'm theory crafting or trying to get cards together for a Venom deck because I like Eddie Brock. Then Avatar comes out and I'm like, oh, Appa is a commander card. I'm going to try to build the Appa deck. And then we go back to Lorwyn and there's a bunch of fairies and I want to upgrade my fairy type deck with all the new fairies that come out. So now I've got like 4 different decks that I'm working on at the same time, and I'm not really able to either give the financial commitment or the time commitment to really dig in on any of them. You keep stretching out all these different decks and things that you're trying to build, and you're not be able to give as much attention and playtesting to everything because you only have a certain amount of time and resources to do theory crafting with your hobbies. I think that makes this ultimately worse because we kind of get lost in the sauce, as it were.
Though it is fair to say that dividing your attention makes bad deck building habits, I think the idea that you are a bad deck builder because you decide to start 4 projects over the course of 4 sets is not a reflection of you being bad at deck building. It's a reflection of your lack of dedication to focus on the ones you really want to do. In this example that you provided, let me be clear, not a you blah blah. In the example provided, if you see Appa and then commit to Appa and then also anti-venom, committing and then having to pause your commitment to that deck archetype because you get an additional interest is not, in my opinion, a reflection of you as a deck builder. It's a representation of how you focus. If you complete the decks, then great. It's more of a reflection of the idea of ADHD versus non-ADHD style of thinking.
Looking back on the golden era of Commander for me, which is kind of like Commander 2017, 2018, like the partners had just come out. We started to get the Dragon and stuff like that, where we had kind of a competitive scene, a casual scene. Weren't getting as many things that were directly for Commander. Arcane Signet hadn't come out, for example. The sets were coming out infrequently enough that we were able to really dive in and find those common and uncommon cards that are really, really strong for your specific commander decks and stuff, and have the time to really dive in and find these neat things at the frequency that things are coming out. We're in a constant state of spoiler season. It's harder to slow down and just really enjoy what's in front of us. We talked in the last episode about we've got spoilers from the next 3 sets coming out. That should not be the case. I'm used to, we have a set coming out in 3 months. We're going to like slowly trickle out some things like a month or 2 out, and then big pre-release. Everyone has a good time. We sit on the decks and the cards and the mechanics for a while, and then we get to the next set. I understand there's a bottom line to get to. I'm not going to try to sit here and criticize Wizards of the Coast for doing what the business decisions they have to do, because at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of control over what they're doing or why. We have the ability to kind of control how we're going to respond to it or what we want to do. We're kind of going over some tips and tricks as far as what we can do to try to navigate this new reality that we're in.
Here's the other thing, right? A lot of people think that, for example, in the pro scene or the draft scene, that you have to have a unrealistic level of intelligence. Granted, yes, you have to have above average game knowledge. That's part of being competitive. When you can understand as a deck builder the criteria your deck needs to function, you can very broadly skim a lot of things, because a lot of what people do in drafts, for example, in Strixhaven was not really removal heavy. It had specific styles of doing certain things. Instead of filtering through the cards for a direct removal, they go, okay, I'm looking for, because this deck's thing wants to kill a thing, give you a token. Just filtering your pool until you understand one of these three cards, and then just eclipsing the rest out of your brain, which is a part of the deck building brain, which is why some players are great players but terrible deck builders, because they understand how to mechanics. But when it comes to assessing what they need, when they process making the deck, it's a different creature entirely.
Specifically, it can be a little bit difficult, and especially as one of the more prominent deck builders among us, because I am prolific. Even with this, that I take into account is the fact that I use Scryfall, and the fact that I have been able to do a lot of the Boolean searches. A lot of that also comes in with just the full set images, so that if you may have missed something, you could dive in to be a better deck builder using a different resource, a way to have all of the card knowledge without necessarily needing to memorize all the card knowledge. Typically, even when you're upgrading your own decks, you know exactly what you want to put into those decks. And with those kinds of Boolean searches, you can narrow down to get to cards that you would use to upgrade, or even build entirely new decks around. If you're not using that resource, it can be that detriment, because with how much has been put out there, it can be devastating much longer down the road that, well, there was this perfect card that I would love for my deck, but I didn't know about it because I wasn't using certain resources at my disposal.
A deck builder versus a deck player can be defined as they both type destroy target, and the deck builder assesses each card, and the deck player just goes, yeah, this one says permanent, and then goes about their business.
There's a chance for that too. There's one card that I kind of highlight the point that I'm getting at. It took me probably a couple of sets to realize the potential of this card, and it was Parting Gust. 2-mana instant, has gift a tapped fish. It is exile target non-token creature. If a gift wasn't promised, return that creature to its battlefield under its own control with a +1 counter on it on the beginning of the next end step. What this effectively does, in a blink deck, it allows you to take a Cloud Shift or something that would normally just be a single target on your own thing. For 1 extra mana, you can either be a Cloud Shift or you can use it as a Swords to Plowshares type of effect, removing something from play. Because I put it in Brago, I've been in games in which I've went to tutor something out of my deck with Brago and have somebody flash in an opposition agent, and then I can use Parting Gust to remove the opposition agent to make sure that I can keep my tutor safe. I wasn't necessarily looking for a Swiss Army knife removal / blink effect card, but we got that as just a random uncommon in this type of set. This is a great card for even, honestly, any kind of deck that's when you use it, because it comes in on end step. So like if a board wipe's going to happen, just take your commander, put it out of space, and it comes back slightly stronger, and it's safe. It's a phenomenal card. When you have sets coming out so frequently, you're looking at kind of the bigger and flashier stuff. Even from a content creator space, we don't get as many like, here are the best commons and uncommons from Bloomburrow or Duskmourn. That kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore because we're having to get ready for the next set to come out. Not having as much time to digest these things, I think there's a lot more stuff that's slipping through the cracks than it used to.
I partially agree, but I still disagree, because in that exact same vein, we have cards from our distant past that have the exact same connotation, and them being released in the separations that they were, 3 to 4 sets like we were expecting. Those cards don't stop existing, and people forget about them all the time. I don't know how often you've been surprise deflecting palmed. The idea that there's too much information being presented is a fair and accurate assessment. But we are playing a game with thousands and thousands of already existing unique cards. Our pool is already so vast. Making it bigger is an issue. We already had that problem with deck building before the massive flood of new stuff too.
Even with that huge pool, there could be, in fact, a new commander that could become your absolute favorite that you just did not know existed. I have had many times where somebody said, man, I wish that there was this card that did such and such. And given the fact that I have paid a little bit more attention to the cards being released, I go, well, yeah, that did exist. It blah, 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 blah. And they're like, I had no idea that card existed. That's where it can become a little bit difficult. And especially if you're trying to make a deck of a mechanic that you have just absolutely loved. You just wanted to build that deck and had no idea that a card did already get printed for it. Now, that's not always going to be the case, because typically a lot of the legendary creatures in sets is what a lot of people do focus on, but it can be a little bit more difficult given the rapid amount of time between sets spoilers.
There's a lot of commanders. For example, I had the ability to play against Aaron from the Spike Feeders at MagicCon Atlanta, and he had brought out Clive Effort's Dominant, which was a mono-red, really spicy mono-red devotion deck. It was very much we all need to take a turn off and kill the Clive player, or else we have no chance of winning. I had never seen that card before. As it stands right now at time of recording, there is only 3,680 of those decks in the entire world, according to EDH Rec. You have a lot of these really things that are just kind of falling through the cracks because we just don't have enough time to digest everything.
Though that is true, I will point out, at Vegas, when we were watching the shows and whatnot, played by Vox, awesome time, was the Clive deck.
With the voice actor of Clive coming out onto stage.
Go forth, my Vox! It was great.
But even that, it's just so many things have been coming out so rapidly. And I did miss the intro part of it. So I knew it was just kind of mono red something or other. It was cool seeing that deck in person and actually getting a chance to play against it. It's kind of nice where we're seeing less of the precons came out, having to deal with 20 different people playing Atraxa, but we're getting more diversity. I'm the only player I know for the most part that plays the Sixth Doctor. And that's just kind of the way it is, because there's not a lot of people that are going back to look at the Sixth Doctor versus Star Trek on the Horizons or Edge of Eternity, or there's a flood of different sci-fi that are out there. Instead of necessarily focusing back on the solutions, what are some things that players can do to kind of help with this giant fear of missing out / not able to really access anything? We talked about utilizing Scryfall to try to find cards that specifically meet your niche of what you're trying to do. What else could players do?
It does go back to doing the Scryfall thing. Learning those Boolean searches will, in fact, improve your deck building ability, finding those cards that you want to build with, finding the new cards from a set, because one of the interesting things that they can do for you is just putting set and the 3 code thing down at the bottom into Scryfall, and it will tell you every single card that was in that set, and can break it down to what's the base set, what's the extended, what's alternate versions. If you're trying to do specifically things that relate to the art, there's the art tag, and those can be very dedicated. I actually had to have a chuckle because one of the things I found out recently is that somebody has, in fact, kept up with the art tag bisexual lighting, and there are multiple cards in there.
That's funny.
My goodness. Normally what I'll do whenever a set comes out as soon as there's a full spoiler, I'll go through and I'll look for any singles that I might want from the set. And that kind of helps me make sure I understand what's on the horizon. I'm normally only looking for cards that are going to upgrade the decks I currently have, or if I'm going to be trying to build a brand new commander from that set. So it's not as like a massive expanse of like, I need to look at all 300 Magic cards from this set to determine which ones I need. It's more of a, okay, is there anything from the set that will go and do something for Brago? Or will this be a good thing for the Sixth Doctor or my dragons or angels or what have you? And just try to think of it that way. And I try not to have too many decks out there. So I'm not like, of the 27 decks that I currently have in paper, are any of these cards going to be good for them? The answer is yes. There's probably going to be lots of them because we were kind of at the general stage of power creep. But pacing yourself out and just kind of looking at cards from like the lens of maybe some of your favorite decks, and then forgiving yourself if you miss something, because you're going to miss a lot of things. There's just no way to keep on top of everything all the time.
Remember, you're not bad for not noticing. You're bad if you say it's bad, and you should never use it.
Remember, your new favorite could be lurking out there. There's a lot of cards being released all at once. Go forth. Dive into the mystery. Maybe you'll even find your new favorite card. I know I do every time that they print a new Steelies. That's why I'm getting Nathan Drake.
Just give me another Krark. That's all I'm asking.
Well, to clarify, you're going to try to get Nathan Drake. May the odds ever be in your favor. Closing remarks here, going back to kind of the self-forgiveness where you're going to miss out on some stuff as we're going. Do the best you can. You're going to miss things, but then just treat it as an opportunity instead of I can't believe it took me long to find this card. Just, oh, that's a new thing for deck XYZ. And just kind of give it as an opportunity to be excited instead of frustrated, because this is going to be an era of Magic for a while that is going to be very frustrating.
And don't forget, you can always use the nichest of cards.
And no matter what you do, things are scary out there. Don't get clapped. Stay strapped. Keep them new cards on you.
Pretty sure Sun Tzu said that one.
How dare you quote Sun Tzu at me?
All right. Well, that is all the time we have today. This has been Levi,
Jacoby,
and Joe.
Have a good rest of your day and a fantastic weekend if you're listening at the end of the week.
Take care and stay safe.
This card's mid, this card's mid. That card, can be good.
Oh, I want that one.
They're all mid.